Under the endless dark sky, the first sound is silence, the kind that seems to breathe on its own. Slow, ancient, unhurried, long before cities and electricity, before clocks and written words, humanity's nights belong to the fire and the stars. Our ancestors gathered around their dim orange glow, listening to the soft hiss of wood, the sigh of wind through the trees. It was here in that vast hush between day and dawn that they first began to dream. They did not question what dreams were. To them, these visions were not accidents of the mind, but messages. Sacred whispers from something greater. The night itself was alive, and in its darkness, they felt watched, guided, even spoken to. When early humans closed their eyes, they believed the veil between worlds thinned. Dreams were maps, guiding them through the hidden geography of existence. The dead spoke through symbols, rivers of light, animals of smoke, faces rising from the void. The earliest hunters, rising before dawn, would describe what they had seen while sleeping. The deer that appeared beside a waterfall, the flickering flame that became a bird. These visions were taken seriously. If a dream showed the hunt's outcome, it was not ignored. It was prophecy. Every dream was an echo of something unseen, a thread connecting human minds to a larger, invisible tapestry. Archaeologists have found faint traces of this belief etched into stone walls and cave ceilings. In the deep chambers of Lascaux, figures of animals twist and shimmer as if alive. Bulls, horses, strange hybrid beings with human faces. To the modern eye, they seem decorative, but look closer and they reveal something else: movement, transformation, ritual. Some researchers believe these images were drawn not from waking memory, but from dream memory, painted by those who traveled inward, who closed their eyes and returned with visions of other worlds. The caves became temples of sleep, echo chambers for the ancient dialogue between human and spirit. There is a strange familiarity in these scenes. Even now, thousands of years later, the patterns they painted still appear in our subconscious. The serpent, the spiral, the endless pursuit. It's as if every dreamer, no matter the century, has dipped their mind into the same hidden pool. The symbols shift shape, but not meaning. The message remains. You are not alone inside your sleep. What visits you has been visiting us all since the beginning. To those early people, dreams were the first form of communication with the divine. They did not yet have religion as we know it. No written scriptures, no temples of stone. But they had the night, and that was enough. When someone dreamed of a storm or a flood, the tribe listened. When a shaman dreamed of fire devouring the forest, preparations were made. Dreams were not separate from life. They were extensions of it. Another realm within the same great breath of the world. To dream was to listen, to remember, to receive. Imagine that world for a moment. A world where the boundary between thought and reality had not yet hardened. Where to dream of a lost loved one was to truly meet them again. Where every flicker of the stars above was seen as a mirror to the inner sky of the mind. The ancients did not ask whether dreams were real. They asked what they meant, who had sent them, and why. The idea that dreams belonged to the dreamer would have seemed absurd. Dreams were communal, cosmic, ancestral. You did not own them. You carried them. As generations passed, entire cultures grew from this nightly communion. Stories told by firelight became myths. Myths became belief systems. Belief systems became civilizations. The gods of Egypt, Sumer, and the Indus Valley may have first appeared in the quiet imaginations of sleeping hunters. The earliest rituals, dances, chants, offerings, were perhaps reenactments of what had been seen beyond the veil. To sleep was not rest, it was participation. The body rested, but the soul traveled. And maybe that is why so much ancient art feels alive, why so many creation stories begin in darkness. They remembered something we have forgotten. That in the quiet, when the conscious world fades, another begins to breathe. Every night, early humanity stepped across that border without fear, guided by visions that shaped their waking lives. To them, the dream was not a private fantasy, but a universal inheritance, a shared stream flowing through every mind. Now, as we stare into the same stars they once watched, it's worth asking, have our dreams changed? Or only our understanding of them? When we dream of falling, of flight, of being pursued or embraced, are we creating those moments anew? Or remembering an ancient script written long before our birth? Perhaps our dreams are not ours at all, but echoes of a language humanity has been whispering since the first fires burned. And as those distant fires fade to embers, the story turns inward again, toward the mystery of rest itself. What if sleep was never just a pause in life's motion, but the hidden engine of it? What if the very act of closing our eyes was nature's oldest design for remembering who we truly are? Sleep is one of the strangest things nature ever invented. Every night, for reasons still not entirely understood, every creature on earth surrenders to it. Muscles slacken, the senses withdraw, consciousness dissolves. For hours, the body lies vulnerable, exposed to the elements and predators, yet evolution has fiercely protected this state instead of erasing it. Something about this nightly descent into darkness is vital, so deeply woven into life that even creatures with no eyes, no true brains, or no concept of safety still experience their version of it. In the oldest patterns of biology, sleep appears again and again, repeating like an ancient code. It repairs, it restores, it binds. For modern science, the function of sleep is clear on the surface. It allows the body to repair cells, consolidate memory, balance hormones, and regulate emotion. But the simplicity of those answers hides a deeper mystery. Why did nature choose this way to do it? Why must the brain disconnect from reality to keep itself alive? There are countless methods evolution could have taken, yet it shaped this rhythm deliberately, as if life itself needed to forget itself for a time. The question isn't only what sleep does for the body, but what it does to consciousness. Inside the sleeping brain, patterns emerge that resemble the early stages of creation itself. Neurons fire in rhythmic bursts. Networks synchronize and desynchronize in a dance of electric tides. The mind, though disconnected from the senses, remains vividly active, replaying fragments of memory, reshaping them, creating new associations. Dreams arise not as random noise, but as strange constructions of experience and imagination combined. In this hidden space, the past and the possible intermingle freely. Some scientists describe it as the theater of memory, yet others whisper that it feels closer to a meeting ground, a shared frequency that every living mind tunes into each night without realizing. When we fall asleep, Our brainwaves shift from the fast chatter of wakefulness to the slower sweeping oscillations of deep rest. In those moments, billions of neurons begin to pulse in harmony, as though remembering a common rhythm older than thought itself. It's almost as if the brain is returning to a primordial hum, the same hum that resonated through our ancestors, and perhaps through all living beings. Some researchers have noticed that these oscillations follow patterns not unlike the cycles found in nature: tides, seasons, even planetary rotations. The mind and the cosmos seem to breathe in similar intervals, separated only by scale. Across the animal kingdom, sleep reveals its universal signature. Dolphins rest half their brains at a time. Birds dream in short bursts between migration flights. Even fruit flies display cycles of activity and stillness that mimic our own. The same architecture repeats across species, suggesting that sleep is not merely a human convenience, but a biological law. What if, buried beneath its surface function, sleep acts as the glue holding the living world together? An invisible network of restoration and memory shared by all consciousness. Our ancient ancestors, without microscopes or neural imaging, might have felt this connection intuitively. To them, the nightly withdrawal into stillness was not a loss but a return, a merging with something vast and eternal. While modern science views sleep as a reset button for the brain, ancient cultures may have experienced it as a signal, a time when the individual mind rejoined a greater current of awareness. Some evolutionary biologists speculate that early forms of consciousness were collective by necessity. Before language, before ego, early humans may have survived through a kind of shared instinct. Patterns passed not only through genes, but through synchronized states of mind during rest. Perhaps this is why even today we sometimes dream of the same symbols, the same archetypes that haunted cave walls and mythic stories long before us. During rapid eye movement, the phase of deepest dreaming, the brain behaves paradoxically. It is as active as when awake, yet cut off from sensory input. The body is paralyzed to prevent movement, but the inner world becomes vast and dynamic. This state has puzzled scientists for decades. It mirrors death and birth at once, the complete surrender of the self, followed by renewal. In that state, the brain replays fragments of reality, weaving them into new narratives that feel simultaneously personal and universal. Every dreamer becomes an artist, and yet the themes repeat across cultures and time: falling, flying, searching, awakening. These shared motifs might be more than coincidence. They may be the residue of a deeper process, a universal template coded into the neural machinery of life itself. Some neuroscientists call this the integration theory, where dreaming binds our separate experiences into a coherent sense of self. But what if it also binds selves together? Past and future minds woven by the same evolutionary rhythm. Imagine consciousness as an ocean, and each sleeping mind as a wave returning briefly to the sea before rising again as an individual. The cycle would not only refresh the body, but resync the mind with something timeless. In this view, sleep is not the absence of awareness, but its renewal, a hidden meeting point for the countless expressions of life across history. Even in scientific experiments, strange patterns appear. When groups of people sleep in the same room, their heart rates and brain rhythms can synchronize subtly over time. When animals share habitats, their sleep cycles align to the moon, the temperature, and even the magnetic fields of the earth. There is evidence, faint, easily dismissed, but persistent, that life sleeps together in ways we barely understand. The world might be pulsing as one great organism, inhaling and exhaling consciousness through every resting being. It is tempting to think of evolution as a ladder, each rung leading higher toward complexity, but sleep suggests something circular instead. Every night, we return to the same ancient state from which consciousness first emerged. It is the evolutionary echo of our beginning. The darkness before thought, the silence before the first word. Perhaps that is why we are drawn to it with such trust. No matter how far we evolve, we cannot escape the call to rest. It's as if nature insists that to be truly alive, we must regularly dissolve back into the same mystery that once birthed us. If this is true, then sleep may not have emerged through evolution at all. It may have been there from the beginning, the original rhythm around which life organized itself. The heartbeat of existence could be a cycle of awakening and surrender, motion and stillness, consciousness and dreaming. We often imagine that awareness came first and sleep later. But what if the opposite is true? What if the universe was dreaming long before it was awake? Each night, as we drift into that quiet surrender, we unknowingly participate in that ancient pattern. The cells in our bodies replay a choreography older than species or stars. Memory, emotion, and energy are rebalanced. But something else happens too. Something subtler. Our inner world syncs with the invisible pulse that has guided life for millions of years. Whether we call it evolution, nature, or something divine, the effect is the same. We return to the source that connects all living minds. And as the night deepens, a question lingers, like the flicker of a dying flame. If sleep truly binds us to something beyond biology, then perhaps the earliest dreamers were right all along. Maybe in the hush between waking and dreaming, we are not just resting, we are remembering the unity we once knew, before thought divided us, before time pulled us apart. As that realization hums quietly beneath the skin of the story, the scene begins to shift. The focus narrows from the vast evolutionary stage to the intimate world of ancient humanity. Those who sought to use sleep, not merely experience it. For them, rest was not a passive act, but a passage, a doorway to realms unseen. And as we follow their footsteps, the question deepens. What if sleep was designed not only to heal the living, but to connect them? Across generations, across worlds, through the shared language of dreams. When the sun slipped beneath the horizon in the ancient world, the night did not merely arrive. It descended like a living presence. Darkness was not feared. It was revered, approached as a vast temple without walls. The stars became its lanterns, and the soft rhythm of the earth's breathing filled the silence. For those who walked the early civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and the Indus Valley, sleep was not simply the end of the day. It was an invitation to meet the divine. Night was the sanctuary, and dreaming was the language spoken within it. Across the deserts of ancient Egypt, priests of the healing god Imhotep prepared the weary and the sick for sacred sleep. They led processions into limestone sanctuaries where the air was thick with frankincense and quiet chanting. The seekers lay upon cool stone beds carved with hieroglyphs, waiting for dreams to deliver answers. In these temples of incubation, the priests believed that divinity spoke most clearly when the body was still and the mind released from daylight's noise. To dream was to open a channel between the human and the eternal. A vision might reveal a cure, a warning, or a sign of favor from the gods. When dawn came, the dreamer would recount every detail to the priests, who interpreted symbols as messages from the other side. Sleep was not a private act. It was a ritual of communion. In Greece, centuries later, that same belief blossomed into refinement. The Asclepians, sanctuaries devoted to Asclepius, the god of healing, became centers for dream incubation across the Mediterranean world. Pilgrims would purify themselves in sacred springs before lying down on sheepskins in torchlit halls. Priests whispered invocations and played soft music as the sleepers drifted toward divine encounter. Many reported that the god himself appeared in dreams, offering remedies or speaking words of renewal. Ancient inscriptions describe miraculous recoveries that followed these nocturnal visitations. Fevers lifted, blindness eased, wounds closed. Whether coincidence or something beyond, it mattered little. The people believed the night had answered. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley, thousands of miles away, early mystics sought union with cosmic order through rhythmic breathing and sacred rest. They viewed sleep not as a break from awareness, but as its deepest form. Some scholars trace the origins of yogic trance and lucid dreaming to these meditative practices, states in which the dreamer remained conscious while traversing the dream itself. Herbs and fragrant oils aided this descent. Blue lotus, known to the Egyptians for its calming and euphoric qualities, was said to open the inner eye, while sandalwood and soma were believed to thin the veil between the worlds. Through these rituals, night became architecture. Its silence was the roof, its shadows, the pillars. In those spaces, the boundary between human and divine dissolved like breath on glass. A farmer could become a prophet. A queen could receive visions of fate. A dying man might hear the whisper of ancestors guiding him home. Across civilizations, separated by distance but joined by instinct, humanity turned to sleep as the oldest temple. Within its invisible walls, they felt watched, tended, known. There is something humbling in imagining those scenes. 1,000 different nights glowing with firelight. 1,000 dreamers surrendering to the same mysterious current. Before written scripture, before dogma and doctrine, people sought the voice of the unseen through dreams. The gods did not dwell above, they dwelled within, and perhaps that is why these rituals felt so powerful. They required no intermediaries, only trust in the darkness itself. It's easy to imagine one such night. The air warm, filled with the scent of burning herbs. A priest moves silently between resting bodies, scattering crushed petals, whispering invocations to the stars. Somewhere beyond the walls, jackals cry to the moon. Inside, a dream begins. A serpent coiling through water. A woman of light speaking a single word the dreamer cannot remember upon waking. Yet the next morning, something has changed. A decision feels clear. An illness fades. A grief softens. The night has spoken in its own way. Modern eyes might call it coincidence or psychology. But to those early dreamers, coincidence was the language of the divine. The solace sign, a bird's cry, a cloud's shape, a whisper in the mind, could be a response from the gods. Sleep was the theatre where those symbols performed, and waking life merely the echo. Each dream was a sacred dialogue, half human, half celestial. The idea of sleep as temple endured for millennia. Even when empires rose and fell, the practice of dreaming for guidance persisted too. The Romans built chambers beneath their cities for dream incubation. Early Christian mystics slept beside relics of saints, hoping for visions. In Persia, Zoroastrian seers inhaled sacred smoke to dream of cosmic battles between light and shadow. The pattern repeats like an unbroken chant. Wherever humanity built walls of worship, they also built spaces for sleep. Perhaps we were always trying to recreate that first communion with the night sky, when nothing stood between us and the vastness. The most remarkable thing about these ancient practices is not their difference but their unity. Whether in Greece or India, Egypt or Babylon, the rituals share the same rhythm: purification, surrender, stillness, and revelation. It suggests that beneath culture and geography there is a common recognition that the mind, when allowed to rest deeply enough, reaches a place beyond itself. The ancients did not need microscopes or data to sense this. They felt it each night in the pulse of their own breath, the rhythm of their hearts matching the slow rotation of the stars. Perhaps, as they lay in their sacred halls, they realized something modern science is only beginning to explore. That the boundaries between self and universe blur in the quiet of deep rest. The gods they sought may have been reflections of their own inner cosmos, voices of a collective memory whispering through the corridors of time. When the Egyptians prayed to Thoth for wisdom, when the Greeks asked Asclepius for healing, when the yogis of the Indus invoked the inner light, they might have been calling upon the same universal consciousness that still visits us in dreams. The night was never empty for them. It was a doorway, and they crossed it willingly, bearing offerings of song and silence. To sleep was to enter conversation, to lie down in the dark and listen. And perhaps that is the deepest truth these rituals reveal. That even now, when we fall asleep in our quiet rooms, surrounded by the hum of modern life, we step into the same timeless temple. The walls may have changed, but the presence has not. As dawn begins to pale on the horizon of this story, the flicker of torches fades, and the dreamers rise. Yet one question lingers like incense in the air. If so many people across history entered these sanctuaries and dreamed of gods, could there be a pattern, a hidden designs, linking those visions together? The next step in our journey drifts toward that mystery, tracing the shared shapes and symbols that have haunted every dream since the first. Across the span of time, the human mind has wandered through 1,000 landscapes of sleep. Yet the scenery seems strangely familiar wherever we look. On cave walls, in tablets of clay, in papyrus scrolls and temple carvings, the same images appear again and again. Serpents coiling through darkness, stars falling from the heavens, floods that cleanse the world, figures rising toward radiant light. Different languages, different continents, yet somehow the same symbols surface, as if humanity were painting fragments of a single dream. In ancient Mesopotamia, priests of the temple of Ishtar kept records of dreams sent by the gods. Many began the same way. A great serpent rose from the deep, bringing warning or transformation. Thousands of years later, in Mesoamerica, the serpent god Quetzalcoatl descended from the sky, teaching civilization to humankind before vanishing into the horizon. In both myths, the serpent was not only danger but knowledge, the coiled bridge between earth and heaven. Egypt, too, told of a cosmic serpent winding through the night sky. Mehen, guardian of the sun god Ra during his journey through the underworld. And even in the earliest Vedic hymns of India, the dragon Vritra embodies the forces of chaos that must be overcome for creation to begin anew. It is as though every culture, unaware of the others, dreamed of the same sacred spiral, the same endless shedding and renewal. Floods carry the same eerie repetition. From Suma's tale of Ziusudra to Noah's Ark, from the Indian story of Manu's survival in a deluge to the Mayan Popol Vuh, the pattern holds. Humanity forgets, the world is drowned, and life begins again. These stories read like myth, but perhaps they began as a dream, an ancient warning whispered into the mind of one who could hear it. The question that lingers is not how these cultures shared information, but why their imaginations converged on the same visions. If dreams are purely personal, why do they echo the same primordial events, the same rhythms of destruction and rebirth? Carl Jung once called these patterns archetypes, the shared language of the collective unconscious. Yet long before psychology named it, the ancients seemed to know it. When a dreamer in Egypt described ascending into the stars, wrapped in wings of light, it mirrored accounts from shamans in Siberia and visionaries in the Andes. They spoke of climbing celestial ladders, of being carried skyward by birds or beams of fire, of standing before beings of immense radiance. The forms differ, but the direction is always the same, upward, toward the infinite. What if these weren't just metaphors for hope, but memories, flashes of something humanity once experienced together, recorded not in books but in the neural circuitry of the mind? Across every civilization, the stars hold this pull. They appear not merely as background, but as participants in the story. Eyes watching, portals opening, ancestors returning. Aboriginal Australians speak of the dream time, where the sky is the reflection of an ancient world still unfolding. To the Dogon of Mali, the stars were teachers, messengers from the invisible realms who seeded knowledge upon earth. In China, emperors dreamed of dragons among the constellations, reading their motion as messages from heaven. The symmetry is haunting. No matter where humanity looked, the same motifs emerged, as if the night sky itself had imprinted its pattern upon our sleeping minds. Some anthropologists attribute these parallels to coincidence or to the shared conditions of human life. Serpents, floods, and stars exist everywhere. Of course, they would appear in myths. Yet there is a deeper thread that resists such simplicity. Many of these symbols describe things the dreamers could not have seen. Celestial alignments, planetary cycles, even geological events later confirmed by science. How did they know? Were these merely intuitive leaps, or remnants of an older memory buried in our collective being? Perhaps dreams have always been the archive of evolution itself, carrying impressions across generations like fossils of the mind. Consider this. Memory is not confined to an individual. Every cell carries records of adaptation, survival, and trauma inherited from countless ancestors. When we dream, those ancient codes may briefly surface, merging personal experience with echoes of an older consciousness. A flood dream, then, might not only symbolize emotion or fear, but recall an ancestral story, a real cataclysm that shaped the human journey. A serpent might signify both instinct and transformation, encoded in the deepest biological strata of the brain. In this light, our dreams are not random stories, but evolutionary whispers, reminders of what humanity has endured, forgotten, and remembered through time. The similarities among dreams also transcend belief systems. In the Islamic world, prophets received guidance through dreams. In the Bible, Joseph and Daniel interpreted symbols sent from God. In Buddhist tradition, Siddhartha dreamed of the lotus that would bloom from his awakening. In all of these visions, the pattern of ascent, transformation, and renewal repeats. The human psyche seems compelled to reimagine itself through the same mythic shapes, as though each sleeper contributes a piece to a larger cosmic mural. What if, in those shared patterns, we are glimpsing the mind of the species rather than the mind of the individual? Imagine consciousness not as countless isolated flames, but as a single fire flickering through many bodies. Dreams might be the moment when that fire gathers itself, remembering its own continuity. When one person dreams of flying, another across the world may dream of falling. Both experiences of release, at opposite ends of the same spectrum. The collective unconscious might not be a metaphor after all, but a living field through which thoughts, fears, and archetypes circulate like currents in a hidden sea. Ancient scribes sensed this unity without naming it. They recorded dreams side by side with events of state, weather omens, and astronomical observations, treating them as equally real. To dream of stars meant destiny was shifting. To dream of water meant renewal or destruction was near. Even now, when we close our eyes and drift, we tap into that same ocean of symbols. The setting may change. The serpent becomes a wire, the flood becomes light. But the essence remains unchanged. The dream's language adapts, yet its grammar never fades. Perhaps we are not inventing these symbols at all, but decoding something older that speaks through us. Just as DNA carries the record of our physical evolution, the recurring patterns of dreams may carry the record of our psychic evolution, the blueprint of awareness itself. Every night, as we sleep, we replay fragments of that long story, blending them with our own lives to keep it alive. The gods, the floods, the stars, the ascents. They are not relics of imagination, but echoes of the same memory, rippling through the corridors of time. And so, the ancient dreamers across the continents were not separated by oceans or languages. They were participants in a single, ongoing vision. One humanity dreaming itself into being again and again. Their symbols were the footprints of that dream, marking the path through darkness toward understanding. Even now, as modern dreamers surrounded by electric light, we still carry those symbols within us, resurfacing when the conscious mind falls silent. The serpent still winds through our subconscious. The flood still rises and recedes. The stars still whisper of origins beyond comprehension. Each image is a reminder that beneath our individuality lies a shared inheritance, a memory of creation and loss that connects us all. And as the story unfolds, one question remains unresolved, glimmering just ahead like a constellation waiting to be named. What ancient mechanism inside the human brain allows these dreams to echo across time? To answer that, we must travel inward, past myth and memory, into the silent architecture of the mind itself, where biology and mystery intertwine. Deep inside the human skull lies a universe as intricate as the one above. Beneath layers of logic and language, beneath the surface chatter of daily thought, something ancient still hums. A rhythm older than civilization, older even than humanity itself. The brain, that grey constellation of billions of neurons, glows and flickers like a night sky compressed into flesh. It is not merely a machine of memory and reflex. It is an echo chamber, perhaps even a receiver, tuned to frequencies that once guided the first dreamers through the darkness. Within this vast landscape, the oldest structures hold the deepest secrets. The limbic system, sometimes called the emotional brain, rests at the core, shaped long before the neocortex began its endless reasoning. It governs instinct, memory, and feeling, the raw language of the soul. When we dream, it reawakens, vivid and unrestrained, as if remembering a time before reason fenced in imagination. The limbic system does not think in words but in symbols. A flicker of fear, a surge of love, a wave of recognition for something we cannot name. It is there, scientists tell us, that ancient echoes stir. The same responses that guided early humans through danger and awe. Yet what if those responses were more than survival tools? What if they were keys, ways for the brain to tune itself to the unseen patterns of the world? For centuries, philosophers and mystics spoke of a hidden organ that linked the physical to the spiritual. They called it the seat of the soul. Today, we know it as the pineal gland, a tiny structure deep in the center of the brain, no larger than a grain of rice. Modern biology describes it as the body's timekeeper, regulating circadian rhythms through the release of melatonin, responding to cycles of light and darkness. But long before science gave it a name, ancient cultures saw it as something far greater. The third eye, a window to realms beyond the senses. In Egyptian symbolism, it was the eye of Horus, the vision that perceives the divine order behind all things. In Hindu tradition, it became the Ajna chakra, the point of intuition, where the self meets the infinite. Even its biology holds mystery. The pineal gland is covered in light-sensitive cells, remnants of a time when it may have functioned as an actual eye in our evolutionary ancestors. Some species of reptiles and fish still possess a photosensitive parietal eye, a vestigial structure attuned directly to the sky. Perhaps, in our own lineage, this gland once received not only light, but information. The subtle cues of celestial movement, solar rhythm, and magnetic flux. If so, the human brain might still carry a buried capacity to sense the cosmos, not through sight or sound, but through resonance. The modern world often speaks of circadian cycles as if they are mechanical. Sunrise tells the brain to wake, darkness tells it to sleep. Yet those simple instructions are part of a larger symphony. The Earth's rotation, the pull of the moon, the shifting magnetism of the planet's core. All these forces pass through us unnoticed. Tiny fluctuations in geomagnetic fields have been shown to affect dream patterns, emotional tone, even the vividness of imagery. Ancient seers spoke of sleeping under certain phases of the moon to receive clearer visions. Now, quietly, science begins to trace the outlines of their intuition. The brain may indeed be responding to cosmic rhythms, syncing its inner tides to the vast cycles of the heavens. During REM sleep, that paradoxical state when the body is still but the mind is ablaze, the brain behaves as if it is both alive and dreaming itself. Neurons fire in cascades, replaying fragments of experience mixed with impossible invention. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and control, rests, while the emotional centers ignite, unbound by reason. In this state, the pineal gland floods the bloodstream with melatonin and, some speculate, trace amounts of dimethyltryptamine, a compound linked to visionary states. Whether or not that substance is produced naturally remains uncertain, but the sensations it evokes, the dissolution of boundaries, the feeling of union with something vast, match the oldest human accounts of cosmic dreaming. It's tempting to dismiss these parallels as poetic coincidence. Yet the structure of the brain invites the comparison. The neurons themselves, when visualized, resemble galaxies. Synaptic pathways map like constellations of light. Electrical signals leaping across voids as stars communicate across space. The same fractal patterns appear in the largest structures of the cosmos and the smallest threads of thought. To the ancients, this was not coincidence but reflection. The microcosm mirroring the macrocosm. To look within was to see the universe thinking through flesh. Imagine the first dreamers beneath the open sky, sleeping in the hum of insects and the slow turning of the stars. Their bodies, guided by the same magnetic field that steers birds and whales, might have absorbed those rhythms unconsciously. Over generations, their brains evolved not in isolation, but in conversation with the cosmos. Each pulse of light from the moon, each fluctuation in solar wind, subtly tuned the patterns of their rest. The architecture of dreaming may have been written not only by biology, but by the heavens themselves. Even today, the language of sleep remains celestial. We fall into dreams as if pulled by gravity. We wake as if into light. These phrases carry remnants of an old knowing. That consciousness waxes and wanes like the phases of the moon. The brain, then, may be less a generator of awareness than its instrument, an antenna receiving frequencies too ancient for words. Perhaps this is why dreams feel both intimate and foreign, as though borrowed from somewhere beyond our own minds. Science can describe the mechanics. Synapses, neurotransmitters, circadian rhythms. Yet what animates those mechanics remains elusive. The rhythm of brainwaves, for instance, mirrors patterns found in music, in ocean tides, even in the oscillations of stars. Some astrophysicists note that certain pulsars emit frequencies near those of human alpha waves. The calm, meditative state between waking and sleep. Coincidence, perhaps. But the symmetry is alluring. Could consciousness itself be a kind of resonance? The universe remembering itself through living matter. If the limbic system is our emotional compass, and the pineal gland our internal sun and moon, then the dreaming brain becomes a model of the cosmos. Cycles within cycles, light within darkness. Each night, we participate in that model unconsciously, our neural constellations flickering in sync with the real ones beyond the atmosphere. When we dream of flight, of falling, of stars and serpents, it may be the brain's way of echoing the movements it once felt all around it, when survival depended on harmony with the planet's rhythms. To call the brain an antenna is to recognize that it does more than compute. It listens. It listens to the body, to the earth, to the quiet hum of magnetic fields that stretch between planets. It may even listen to something further still. The faint vibration of existence itself, that ancient whisper from the stars. When we sleep, that signal strengthens. The noise of the waking world fades, and the old circuitry comes alive again. Just as it did for our ancestors who looked up and saw patterns written across the heavens. Perhaps this is why dreams so often carry the feeling of recognition. The strange certainty that what we see, though impossible, is familiar. It's as if the brain, in its oldest language, is telling us, "You have been here before." In those moments, we glimpse the continuity between the cosmos and ourselves, between the neural and the celestial. The night sky outside and the night sky within reflect one another endlessly. As the story unfolds from biology towards something even more profound, one idea lingers like a pulse beneath the words. If the brain was shaped in conversation with the cosmos, then consciousness itself may be an extension of that dialogue. The next step is to follow that pulse outward, beyond the body, beyond the neurons, to the vast question of whether the universe, too, might be dreaming through us. Long before telescopes captured starlight or scientists mapped the heavens, humanity was already living beneath an invisible conversation between the sky and the brain. Every flicker of lightning, every solar flare, every silent pulse from distant constellations passed through the fragile web of Earth's atmosphere, leaving traces. Not visible, but felt. The human nervous system, with its delicate circuitry of electricity and chemistry, grew up inside this field of cosmic energy. Each neuron fired beneath radiation older than life itself. Perhaps that is why, even now, we cannot look at the stars without feeling something stir inside the skull. A recognition that our minds and the night share the same quiet voltage. Cosmic radiation may sound like a threat, but it is also a sculptor. Over millions of years, particles from exploding suns have rained upon the planet, altering DNA in subtle but permanent ways. Mutations, both harmful and miraculous, have been born from that endless storm of energy. Every atom in our bodies carries traces of it. Elements forged in the hearts of stars long vanished. The calcium in our bones, the iron in our blood, the carbon of our thoughts, all of it once glowed inside a celestial furnace. So when we dream, when electrical currents ripple across the brain, could we be reenacting the same cosmic forces that created us? The story of evolution is, in a sense, the story of the universe learning to feel itself. Somewhere along that line, the human brain appeared. Not by design, but by endless trial, shaped by the push and pull of its environment. Among those forces, the heavens played their part. Geomagnetic fields, the invisible shield of our planet, are not static. They wander, reverse, and fluctuate with astonishing rhythm. Some researchers suggest that these shifts may have subtly influenced the way neurons fire, changing sensitivity, perception, even emotion. Migratory animals still navigate using these invisible lines of force. Perhaps ancient humans did too, though not consciously. The compass may have lived inside the skull, guiding not just the body, but the imagination. Imagine a time when the Earth's magnetic field was stronger, the sky alive with auroras even near the equator. To our distant ancestors, these lights must have looked like rivers of spirit, gateways shimmering between worlds. What if those lights did more than inspire myths? Certain magnetic frequencies can affect the brain's temporal lobes, the region tied to vision, memory, and spiritual experience. Some people exposed to such fields report sensations of presence, awe, or otherworldly connection. If the planet's magnetic breath once rose and fell in stronger waves, could it have nudged the sleeping human brain into synchrony, creating shared dream imagery across entire populations? The link between sky and mind deepens when we consider resonance. Every structure, from the atom to the galaxy, vibrates at particular frequencies. The Earth itself hums faintly at about 8 cycles per second, a rhythm called the Schumann resonance, strikingly close to the alpha waves of the relaxed meditative human brain. It is as though the planet and the mind are tuned to the same key. When ancient people spoke of harmony between heaven and earth, they may have sensed this resonance long before instruments could detect it. Night after night, as they lay beneath open skies, their bodies and brains might have fallen naturally into that shared vibration, dreaming to the same planetary rhythm. In those dreams, patterns emerged: spirals, serpents, celestial rivers. The same shapes seen in cave art appear in the visual distortions induced by electromagnetic stimulation or altered states. Neurochemistry meets cosmology here, the boundary where biology translates energy into vision. Perhaps the serpent winding through so many ancient myths was not merely symbol, but experience. The brain's interpretation of electrical flow, seen against the inner darkness. The sacred fire of shamans, the divine light of prophets, the wheel of Ezekiel, the shining ladder of Jacob. All may have been visions sparked by the meeting of cosmic radiation and neural circuitry, moments when the heavens briefly wrote upon the mind. Solar cycles, too, play their silent role. Periods of intense solar activity send waves of charged particles that can disturb the Earth's magnetic field. In recent history, spikes in solar storms have coincided with shifts in human behavior. Migrations, unrest, bursts of creativity, even collective dreams. Ancient sky watchers, though unaware of physics, tracked these cycles obsessively. They built calendars aligned with sunspots, eclipses, and equinoxes. They seemed to understand that what happened above reverberated below, that human fate was somehow woven into the pulse of the sun. When those great flares reached Earth, perhaps they didn't just shimmer across the poles. Perhaps they flickered across human thought as well. Over time, evolution may have incorporated this cosmic interference into its own design. A brain that could adapt to changing radiation levels, that could translate subtle shifts in magnetism into intuition or imagination, would have had an advantage, an ability to sense change before it arrived. The dream then might have evolved as a kind of early warning system, a simulation born from the universe's own rhythms. To dream of floods before they came, of animals before they appeared, was not prophecy but pattern recognition tuned to forces larger than the self. Even the chemistry of dreaming hints at the cosmic connection. The molecules that guide sleep and vision, melatonin, serotonin, and DMT, all derive from the same simple precursors found throughout nature. They appear in plants, animals, fungi, and, astonishingly, in meteorites. The seeds of our inner worlds may have drifted here from elsewhere, stardust carrying the instructions for perception itself. When those compounds dance through the sleeping brain, they ignite experiences that echo the geometry of galaxies and atoms alike. The spiral of a shell, the orbit of a planet, the swirl of a dream. The same design scaled through infinity. From this perspective, sky worship was never ignorance. It was memory. When early humans built monuments aligned with the solstice or carved spirals into stone, they were not merely marking seasons. They were recording correspondence, mapping the dialogue between their minds and the cosmos. The temple and the brain were reflections of one another. Stone circles mirrored synaptic rings. Pyramids reached upward like firing neurons seeking connection. Every ritual beneath the stars may have been an act of synchronization, an attempt to stay in tune with the frequencies that had shaped humanity's very consciousness. Even now, despite the veil of modernity, remnants of that connection linger. Some people are sensitive to geomagnetic storms, feeling restless or inspired during peaks of solar activity. Others report vivid dreams or heightened intuition around eclipses or meteor showers. Science may classify these as coincidences or psychological suggestion, yet the pattern endures. The same ancient conversation continues, faint but unbroken. The stars whisper, and somewhere in the labyrinth of neurons, the message still finds its way home. If cosmic energy truly sculpted our neural evolution, then dreaming might be the residue of that shaping, the brain's way of remembering the forces that once guided its formation. The night sky, with all its movement and radiation, is not just the backdrop of our story, but its author. We may carry its handwriting within every pulse of thought. As this idea settles, the lens of the story begins to turn again. The grand expanse of the cosmos fades, and attention shifts back to Earth, to the tangible stones and carvings left by those who lived close to the stars. Their monuments may be more than architecture. They may be the fossilized dreams of civilizations that once knew this secret well. In the next chapter, we descend from the heavens to the soil, following their traces to where memory and myth were carved in rock. The places where the dreams of humanity were given shape and made eternal. In the beginning, there were no words, only images. Long before alphabets or numbers, before kingdoms and stories carved on scrolls, the human mind spoke in color and symbol. Somewhere deep within a cave, a flicker of torchlight revealed that first communication. Ochre on stone, a handprint pressed against eternity. The artist, or perhaps the dreamer, crouched before the wall and drew what no one had ever seen with waking eyes. Not animals grazing in the sunlight, but creatures that shimmered between forms. Spirals that spun into infinity. Figures half human, half spirit. The cave was not a gallery. It was a threshold. Each mark on its walls was a message from the other side of sleep. Archaeologists often describe these ancient paintings as evidence of ritual, hunting magic, or the first stirrings of imagination. But when we look closer, when we stand inside those echoing chambers where sound itself seems to fold, another possibility emerges. The walls are not only canvases, they are dream maps. In France's Lascaux, Spain's Altamira, in the depths of Sulawesi and the Kimberley Plateau, images pulse with a strange internal motion, as though the rock itself remembers the vision. Spirals twist into serpents, dots become constellations, and radiant things emerging from cracks like light, escaping through stone. The artists may have painted what they saw not in daylight, but in the visions behind closed eyes. Revelations born of trance, sleep, shadow. In many caves, archaeologists have found traces of soot and herbs used in ancient ceremonies. Some of these substances, like burning acacia or resin, are known to induce altered states. Imagine the scene. A small fire flickers, casting light that dances across the wall. The air thickens with smoke and rhythm. The dreamers close their eyes, hearing the slow heartbeat of the drum, the earth's pulse. And when they open them again, the wall has become a mirror. The shapes appear to move, to breathe. Time dissolves. What they record in pigment is not imitation, but translation. The dream turned visible, the unseen made permanent. The spiral, the most universal symbol in ancient art, tells this story silently. It appears everywhere. Carved into stones in Ireland's Newgrange, painted on pottery in the Americas, etched on shells from the Mediterranean. Scientists propose it as a sun symbol, a reference to nature's cycles. Yet within the spiral is another meaning, the endless inward and outward motion of consciousness itself. To dream is to enter that spiral, descending into the depths of mind and returning changed. The pattern is so ancient that it may predate humanity's sense of time. Some neuroscientists note that when we enter deep sleep, our brainwaves follow oscillations that mirror the geometry of spirals. The same rhythm that guided our dreams might have guided our hands when we first carved stone. Across the deserts of Egypt, hieroglyphs later continued this language of vision. Gods with animal heads, suns with wings, eyes that watch and speak, all drawn with the same mixture of awe and precision. The Egyptians believed dreams were messages from the divine realm, carried through the duat, a dimension between night and day. To write in symbols was not to decorate, but to capture that dimension, to encode the invisible. Every hieroglyph was a living entity, a spell. The act of carving was an invocation, a way to make the dream endure beyond the body. The walls of tombs became vast diaries of cosmic sleep, entire narratives of death, rebirth, and the journey through stars. Far from Egypt, the same instinct emerged. The petroglyphs of the American Southwest depict beings with radiant halos, stairways ascending into the sky, and wheels of light that resemble modern interpretations of portals or celestial craft. The Hopi and the Anasazi called these places sipapu, openings to the world below or above. Whether literal or symbolic, they echo the same dream architecture found on other continents. In Siberia, shamans carved images of spirits riding serpents of light. In Australia, Aboriginal rock art tells of the dreamtime, the age when beings from beyond shaped the land. The recurring symbols, spiral, ladder, serpent, eye, sun, form a vocabulary shared across millennia. It is as though the human mind, in its most private dreams, kept telling the same story and refused to forget it. If language was born from necessity, art was born from memory, not of what was seen, but what was known. To paint or carve was to ensure that the inner vision survived the waking day. Some researchers call this the birth of symbolic thought. Others might call it the first act of remembering who we are. When the first artist pressed a hand against stone, it wasn't merely identity being recorded. It was presence, proof that the dreamer had passed through. Those has, now ghostly and faded, feel like signatures left at the border between worlds. As light moves across the surface of these ancient images, they almost animate themselves. Horses gallop, men merge with beasts, suns expand and contract. The caves are not static, they are immersive. Standing within them feels like stepping inside a mind. The collective mind of a species, awakening to its inner cosmos. In these chambers, sound behaves differently. Echoes coil and return like whispers. Archaeologists have discovered that many painted areas correspond to points of strong acoustics. It suggests that the artists were not only painting but performing, their chants vibrating through the images, perhaps bringing them to life in the flicker of firelight. The dream was never silent. It sang. The thought that dreams could be shared, externalized, turned to stone, gives human history a strange continuity. These artworks were not attempts to create beauty for its own sake. They were acts of connection, bridges across time. Each image said, "I saw this too." In that shared recognition, humanity began to build culture. Dream became story. Story became teaching. Teaching became tradition. The chain began not in daylight, but in the night, in the mystery of what the mind could conjure when freed from the boundaries of waking perception. Today, when we walk through museums or gaze upon photographs of these ancient works, we are looking directly into the minds of people who may have dreamed as we do. The same fears, the same longing for meaning, the same awe at the vastness above. The animals may have changed, the stars shifted, but the pattern of dreaming has not. In their spirals and suns, we can still trace the pulse of that first imagination. The recognition that to dream is to remember something older than life itself. Perhaps this is why these ancient carvings feel alive even now. They are not simply art. They are the preserved surface of humanity's first consciousness, fossilized thought etched in stone. Each mark carries a vibration, an echo of the heartbeat that made it. When we look upon them, something within us responds, a quiet thrill of recognition, as though a message written in the language of sleep has finally been read again. If dreams were once painted on stone, what came next was their translation into story. As the centuries turned, the visions that lived on walls began to move into words, myths, and creation tales. What was once a private revelation became shared narrative. The dream retold as memory, the memory retold as origin. The stone symbols softened into language, and the world began to speak its dreams aloud. And so the story turns, from the markings of the cave to the myths of the dawn. The carvings fade into song, the images into legend. What once was painted in silence will soon be spoken in firelight. The next step in humanity's endless dialogue between dream and waking, between the seen and the unseen. Myth is memory wrapped in story. It carries the fragrance of dreams that refuse to fade with dawn. Long before history began to measure time, people gathered around fires and retold their visions from the night before, shaping them into tales of gods and beginnings. As centuries passed, those fragments of dream grew roots and names: Gilgamesh, Isis, Odin, Amaterasu, yet their source remained the same. They were the echoes of the inner world, carried forward by language until imagination became tradition. The oldest surviving epic, the tale of Gilgamesh, begins with a dream. The mighty king of Uruk dreams of a star falling from the sky, a symbol of a companion who will change his fate. His mother, the goddess Ninsun, interprets it as the arrival of Enkidu, the wild man sent by the gods. What begins as a dream unfolds into one of humanity's first written stories. Yet, beneath the surface, the myth preserves something universal: the theme of loss, awakening, and the search for immortality. These are not merely plot lines. They are recurring dream motifs: falling stars, eternal journeys, the shadow of death. Patterns older than writing itself. It's as if the first storytellers were preserving the dreams of their ancestors. repeating them aloud so they would not vanish with sleep. Across the world, other cultures told similar stories. In the deserts of Australia, the Aboriginal people spoke of the Dreamtime, an eternal dimension where creation began, where every mountain, river, and creature was sung into being. To them, dreaming was not an escape from reality, but the foundation of it. The Dreamtime existed before time, and the songs that described it were maps back to the origins of life. Even today, elders say that when one dreams deeply, they walk those same ancient paths, revisiting the moment when the world was new. The same rhythm beats in the myths of Greece, where gods sleep and wake in cycles that mirror human life. Zeus dreams the universe into motion, then watches it repeat. The story of Orpheus descending into the underworld for love echoes the nightly journey of the mind into shadow and loss. In Egypt, Ra sails through the underworld each night, fighting the serpent of chaos before rising again as the morning sun. Every myth reflects the same structure: descent, revelation, return. The same spiral traced in dream and carved in stone. It is as though the entire human species once dreamed a single great dream, and mythology is its echo written across cultures. The characters may differ, but their essence that remains: the wise serpent, the sacred flood, the divine child, the cosmic mother. These are not inventions of isolated tribes. They are reflections of a shared psychic landscape. In dreams, we do not invent meaning. We rediscover it. The mythmakers of old were not authors in the modern sense. They were translators, giving language to what the collective mind had already imagined. When we listen to the myth of the Great Flood told in Sumer, or the tale of Manu's Ark in India, or Noah's journey in the Bible, we are hearing the same dream retold through different tongues. Each version recalls an overwhelming wave that resets the world, cleansing it of its errors. Whether the flood was real or symbolic no longer matters. The story itself feels familiar because it mirrors the cycle within us. The mind's need to wash away the past, to begin again. Dreams of drowning or rebirth are among the most common across humanity. Myth simply expanded them, gave them form, made them eternal. The mythic heroes who ascend to the heavens, from the Incas' Pachacuti to the Sumerian Etana, from Enoch to the prophets of later faiths, all follow the same path as the dreamer rising from darkness into light. The soul climbs, meets the divine, and returns changed. These ascensions are not literal flights. They are metaphors for awakening, for the moments when consciousness glimpses beyond itself. The brain records such experiences as symbols, and through generations, those symbols become the scaffolding of myth. Even chaos and creation myths follow this dream logic. The void, the emergence of light, the first breath. These are the sensations of awakening from deep sleep. Each morning, humanity reenacts its own genesis. Eyes opening from darkness, mind forming meaning from the void. To dream of the beginning of the world is to remember that process in miniature. Perhaps that is why creation myths are so instinctively familiar. They describe not an external event, but the daily miracle of consciousness returning from the night. In this sense, myth is the memory of dreaming, shaped into a story we can carry while awake. It explains why symbols outlive the civilizations that made them. Even when their languages vanish, their dreams persist. The serpent still winds through art and religion. The flood still rises in collective imagination. The journey to the underworld still defines transformation. Myths endure because they are made of something older than belief. They are the fossils of shared vision, reminders of what humanity once saw together in the darkness. When we read ancient myths today, they do not feel foreign. They feel remembered. The emotions they evoke, wonder, fear, longing, awe, belong to a part of the mind untouched by time. We may not believe in gods of stone or serpents of light, but we still dream them. That is their proof of life. Myth never dies. It mutates. It becomes literature, film, religion, and philosophy. Yet beneath every version lies the same heartbeat. The stories we call fiction may be the latest translations of those same ancient dreams. The storyteller and the dreamer are one and the same. Both wander the inner world. Both seek meaning in symbols. Both bridge the personal and the cosmic. The myths we inherited are not lessons from the past. They are mirrors, showing us who we have always been. Perhaps the gods were never external beings at all, but personifications of human potential. The sleeping parts of ourselves still waiting to awaken. And if that is true, then dreams are not only creative, but hereditary. They are the invisible thread connecting generations, the bridge between ancestor and descendant. Every time we close our eyes, we may step into the same inner landscape our forebears once walked, revisiting the stories they began. Myth becomes not just history, but inheritance. As the narrative softens, the firelight of myth fades into a more intimate glow. The light of the human body itself. Within us lies another kind of script, one not written on clay or carved in stone, but encoded in every cell. The next step of this journey leads inward, to the hidden library within our flesh. If dreams are indeed echoes of our collective past, then perhaps they are stored not only in the mind, but in the body, waiting in the double helix of our DNA. Inside every human cell lies a history more complete than any library. A spiraling ladder of chemical letters, A, T, C, G, stretches back billions of years, recording the triumphs and traumas of existence. To most, DNA is the blueprint of the body. But to those who listen more closely, it sounds almost like a song, one that hums softly through generations. The melody is subtle, but it carries memory. Not the kind we recall consciously, but the deeper kind: instinct, emotion, response. What if, hidden within this molecular symphony, lie fragments of the dreams our ancestors once dreamed? Science has begun to uncover what poets long intuited, that experience can echo beyond a single lifetime. The study of epigenetics shows that trauma, joy, and adaptation can leave chemical marks on genes, turning them on or off in response to the world. The child of a famine survivor may carry the memory of hunger in the way their body stores food. Descendants of those who faced fear or exile may inherit heightened vigilance or an inexplicable sense of nostalgia for places they've never been. Memory, it seems, is not limited to the mind. It flows through the bloodstream. If the body remembers, could the dreaming mind be the interpreter of those memories? During sleep, when consciousness loosens its grip, the brain begins to retrieve information from hidden sources. Perhaps some of what we call ancestral dreams. Scenes, faces, landscapes, unfamiliar yet hauntingly known, are the mind's attempt to translate this cellular archive into imagery. In that view, Dreaming is not invention, but interpretation. A biological reading of a genetic text written long before we were born. Consider the strange familiarity of certain dreams. Walking through ancient cities, speaking languages we do not know, recognizing faces that vanish upon waking. These are dismissed as coincidence. But what if they are glimpses of inherited recollection? DNA does not store pictures, yet it may preserve the emotional impressions of lived experience. The chemical shadows of fear, joy, or awe. The dreaming brain could then transform those impulses into symbols, giving narrative form to molecular memory. This theory resonates with myth, the repetition of archetypes across cultures. The hero, the serpent, the flood, may not only be the product of a collective unconscious, but also a genetic echo, the biological record of humanity's shared survival. We may carry within us not just instincts for movement or protection, but instincts for story. Evolution may have hardwired narrative itself, a need to organize chaos, to find meaning, to retell what has been lived. Epigenetic studies in animals reveal that learned fears can indeed pass through generations. Mice trained to associate a particular scent with danger produced offspring that reacted to the same scent with anxiety, despite never having encountered it before. If fear can be inherited chemically, why not awe? Why not wonder? Perhaps the dream is how the body replays these patterns safely, giving each new generation a rehearsal for experiences their ancestors faced. In this light, dreams become survival mechanisms and spiritual inheritance at once. A person born on a quiet island may still dream of vast migrations or ancient predators, because their genes remember the urgency of a flight. Someone who has never seen a desert may dream of one, not from imagination, but from lineage. The past may whisper through our cells, and the brain, fluent in metaphor, translates those whispers into stories of light, water, and rebirth. Philosophers once said, the soul travels through generations. Science now shows that something very close to that may be true. We do not start as blank slates, but as palimpsests. Layers of experience written and rewritten across time. The double helix carries not only the architecture of flesh, but the echo of every adaptation, every moment of wonder that shaped it. To dream may be to hear those echoes, to remember, for a few fleeting minutes, what it felt like to be someone else in another age. There is a gentle beauty in this idea. It means that even in isolation, no dreamer is alone. The stories that unfold each night behind our eyelids may be collaborations with countless others. Ancestors who breathed, feared, loved, and hoped before us. We inherit not only their faces and bones, but their unfinished dreams. Each generation adds a new verse to the same eternal story. When morning comes and the dream dissolves, its residue linger, a faint ache of recognition. The feeling that we have touched something older than ourselves. Perhaps that sensation is the truest evidence of all. In the quiet hum of our DNA, the universe continues to remember. And as this realization deepens, the narrative turns once more toward the loss of memory. If our genetic code carries the echoes of ancient dreams, what happens when we cease to listen? When artificial light and restless minds drown out the rhythms that once connected us to the great inheritance within. The next chapter asks this haunting question. What becomes of humanity when the dream code begins to fade? There was a time when darkness was not an enemy, but a guide. Night unfolded slowly then, unbroken by electricity or noise, a velvet pause between one bar and the next. The stars were visible, countless and near, and their quiet rhythm shaped our own. Sleep came like a tide, gentle, inevitable, complete. Dreams rose with it, carrying their messages in symbols and whispers. But somewhere along the long arc of civilization, that rhythm began to break. We brightened the night, quickened the day, and stretched wakefulness far beyond its natural edge. In doing so, we may have dimmed more than the stars. We may have silenced the ancient conversation between the mind and the cosmos. Artificial light changed everything. What was once governed by the sun and the moon became controlled by switches and screens. The pineal gland, that tiny keeper of time and dream, no longer receives the full measure of darkness it once did. The body's internal clock drifts, its signals confused. Melatonin, the hormone that opens the gates of sleep, retreats before the glare of endless light. Our nights have become counterfeit dawns. Glowing, restless, and thin. We close our eyes, surrounded by artificial stars, and wonder why dreams no longer find us as they once did. Technology hums in the background of our rest, like a persistent whisper. The phone on the nightstand, the soft pulse of notifications, the ceaseless stream of information. All of it tethers us to waking consciousness, even as we lie in bed. We live suspended between worlds, neither truly awake nor truly asleep. The mind, overstimulated by the constant flicker of digital life, struggles to descend into the slow depths where dreams form. Modern insomnia is not merely the absence of sleep. It is a symptom of disconnection, a collective forgetting of how to surrender. Our ancestors knew the value of that surrender. They practiced it deliberately, entering sleep as one enters a sacred space. They understood that rest was not an interruption of life, but a continuation of it on another plane. Now, rest has become an obstacle, an inconvenience to productivity. We measure our worth by how little we sleep, not how deeply. The modern world praises those who burn the midnight oil. But in that endless glow, we burn away something essential. The mystery that once waited for us in the dark. In place of dreams, we have constant distraction. The subconscious, once a vast landscape of meaning, is drowned beneath noise. When we do dream, we rarely remember. The images scatter upon waking, too fragile to survive the instant reach for the phone, the flood of artificial light. We begin each morning as if disconnected from ourselves, unaware that we have abandoned the nightly dialogue our ancestors tended so carefully. It is strange to think that humanity, once guided by dreams, now lives in deliberate forgetfulness. Kings once consulted oracles, priests listened to visions. Entire civilizations traced their destiny by the symbols that arrived during sleep. Today, those same visions are dismissed as random neural static. But perhaps we have simply lost the language to read them. Dreams speak in metaphor, rhythm, and emotion. Languages older than words. To interpret them requires silence, patience, and reverence for mystery, qualities the modern world rarely rewards. There is also the matter of pace. The ancient night was slow, filled with pauses. People slept in segments. First sleep, then waking, then second sleep. In the quiet hours between, they prayed, reflected, or shared their dreams. Now, we chase uninterrupted 8-hour cycles that rarely come, forcing the body into a rhythm it did not evolve to keep. The insomnia so many experience may not be failure, but protest. The body remembering another way of being. It calls for stillness, but we answer with caffeine and blue light. The more disconnected we become from natural cycles, the more our inner landscape empties. Studies show that dream recall has declined in modern populations. But statistics cannot capture what that loss feels like. It is the soft ache of waking without mystery, the dullness that comes from a world too bright to imagine. Without dreams, life narrows. We become creatures of daylight only, efficient but hollow, moving through the motions of existence with no connection to its depth. And yet, even amid all this light, the instinct to dream persists. The sleepless know it best, those who lie awake long after midnight, eyes open to the darkness that remains between buildings. They sense something missing, a whisper half heard beneath the hum of the modern world. In their wakefulness, they stand at the edge of the forgotten temple of night. What they feel is not merely fatigue, but longing. The yearning to return to a rhythm that once aligned body, mind, and sky. Perhaps that longing itself is the proof that the ancient connection still survives. Even cut off from true darkness, our cells remember. The body still responds to lunar cycles, the brain still hums with solar rhythms, the heart still slows when night falls. Somewhere inside us, the old world sleeps. The one where stars guided thought and dreams, stitched humanity into the cosmos. The tragedy of modern life is not that we no longer dream, but that we no longer listen. We treat sleep as an inconvenience and dreams as irrelevant, unaware that both are languages of repair. Every unremembered dream is a message returned unopened, a page of the universe's diary left unread. The insomnia of the age may be more than a medical condition. It may be a form of collective amnesia, the soul's protest against forgetting its origins. Yet there is hope in this recognition. Just as the night can be polluted, it can also be restored. The stars still wait above the haze. The darkness still hums with the old rhythm. We need only remember how to slow down, how to let the body fall back into alignment with the Earth's rotation, how to invite dreams back as honored guests instead of intruders. The quiet that follows such remembrance feels sacred, like stepping once more into the temple of sleep where the ancestors still whisper. For in that silence, something begins to stir. The faint voice we thought we had silenced, the one that speaks not in words but in symbols, reminding us who we are. And so, as the lights of the modern world flicker and fade toward dawn, a new question rises. If the night once carried the messages of the cosmos, could those messages still be waiting, unheard, beneath the static? The answer may lie in what comes next, in the rediscovery of the ancient art of rest, and the rituals that once guided humanity back into harmony with the dreaming world. For the night is not lost, only forgotten, and all that is forgotten can be remembered again. Long before alarms, schedules, and sleepless screens divided the night into hours, sleep moved in softer cycles. Darkness was not a void to be endured, but a landscape to be explored, a place where life slowed to the rhythm of the moon. Ancient people did not sleep through the night as we do. They traveled through it, guided by an unspoken pattern written into the body and the sky alike. The first rhythm was the cycle of segmented sleep. In many parts of the pre-industrial world, people drifted naturally into two periods of rest. The first sleep began soon after sunset. For 4 or 5 hours, families sank into deep slumber. Then, sometime after midnight, they stirred. Not with panic, but calm familiarity. The fire was tended, prayers whispered, stories exchanged. Some meditated, others made love, or stepped quietly outside to watch the stars. This interval, the watch of the night, was a sacred interlude between worlds. Then came the second sleep, a gentler descent into dreams, lasting until dawn. Historians have found traces of this pattern in texts from medieval Europe to ancient China. Yet what those records rarely capture is the feeling of that time. The stillness between sleeps, when the human mind hovered close to the dream. In that liminal state, visions came easily. It was said that a question whispered into the dark could return as a dream before morning. The boundaries between waking thought and dreaming imagination blurred, opening a space where revelation could occur. To sleep in segments was to remember that consciousness, too, has tides. The lunar rhythm added another layer to this celestial design. Before clocks, light itself marked time. The waxing and waning of the moon subtly shaped rest. During the full moon, when nights were bright, people stayed awake longer, gathering for rituals or reflection. When the moon waned and darkness deepened, they slept earlier, their dreams often described as clearer, more vivid. Shamans and monks across cultures timed their meditations to these cycles, believing the moon amplified or dimmed the gateway between realms. Science now tells us that melatonin production does fluctuate with lunar phases, but the ancients did not need data. They felt the pull in their bones. In the monasteries of early Asia and the deserts of the Middle East, sleep itself became a form of devotion. The monks of Mount Athos, for instance, practiced polyphasic sleep, resting in short, deliberate intervals throughout the night, each followed by prière or contemplation. In Tibet, dream yoga transformed slumber into sacred art. Practitioners trained to remain conscious while dreaming, to recognize the illusion of the dream as they moved within it. The goal was not escape, but awareness. To wake within the dream, to know that reality and vision were threads of the same tapestry. Shamans of the Americas and Siberia followed similar paths. Through rhythmic drumming or herbs that softened the boundaries of perception, they entered lucid states akin to dreaming while awake. These journeys were not entertainment, but responsibility. They sought guidance for their people, healing for the sick, insight into storms or migrations. When they returned, they recounted what they had seen. Rivers of light, ancestors speaking in flame, beings that dissolved into songte. These were not dreams to them, but travels through the deeper layers of the world. The practice of recording dreams, something nearly forgotten today, kahe, was once common among mystics. In temples of Asclepius, the Greek god of healing, dreamers slept upon sacred skins and upon waking inscribed every image they remembered. Egyptian priests kept similar journals, interpreting the language of symbols as messages from gods. Even centuries later, monastic scribes in Europe wrote of dreams as visitations, clues to spiritual truth. They treated their sleep not as idleness, but as dialogue, a continuation of prayer. There is evidence that these rituals did more than inspire. They changed the body itself. Modern neuroscience shows that mindfulness before sleep enhances dream recall and increases lucid dreaming. Perhaps the ancients had already discovered this without knowing the mechanism. Their chants, prayers, and midnight vigils were techniques of alignment, synchronizing their minds with the natural cycles of night. To them, dream mastery was not a curiosity, it was a sacred duty. The more one learned to listen to the dream, the closer one came to the divine. Imagine the texture of such a night. A quiet village, the moon bright enough to cast shadows. Somewhere, a monk writes by candlelight, recording a dream of wings and stars. In another valley, a shaman beats a slow drum, heartbeat to heartbeat, slipping into the same dream realm. Across distance and culture, these sleepers are connected by the same rhythm. The pulse of the earth beneath their bodies, the hum of the sky above, the darkness they inhabit is not loneliness but communion. We have largely forgotten that rhythm. Our nights are fragmented, but without the grace of stillness. The watch between sleeps has been replaced by glowing screens and restless thought. Yet beneath the artificial noise, the body remembers. It knows how to drift, how to awaken gently, how to listen to the soft voice between dreams. When we allow ourselves to wake in the middle of the night and simply breathe, something ancient stir. The same awareness that once guided shamans and monks through the corridors of sleep. To reawaken this ancient pattern is not difficult. It requires only patience and reverence. Step away from the light before sleep. Sit with the night as though it were an old friend. Let the first sleep carry you into depth. Then, when you wake in the small hours, do not fight it. Use that quiet as the ancestors did. For reflection, prayer, or simply wonder, the second sleep will come on its own, carrying you deeper than before. In this way, you may begin to travel through the night once more, rather than simply pass through it. The rituals of segmented and lunar sleep remind us that dreaming is not a passive state but an art, a dialogue between body and cosmos. To restore that dialogue is to reopen the doorway to meaningful dreaming, to the ancient practice of remembering who we are. And as the story deepens, another mystery begins to flicker at the edge of awareness. The strange tools left behind by those dreamers, artifacts designed not for waking life, but for the world of sleep itself. Throughout the world's ruins and museums lie objects whose purposes seem both sacred and inexplicable. They are not weapons, nor tools of labor, nor ornaments of status. They are instruments meant for stillness, to be worn, held, or heard while the body slept. Their silence speaks of intention, of design for unseen journeys. Why, we must ask, did our ancestors build objects meant only to be used while unconscious? One such artifact is the crystal skull. Found in scattered legends and controversial discoveries, these skulls are carved from quartz so pure it refracts light like frozen water. Modern tests show some were shaped by hand with painstaking precision. Though their true origin remains uncertain, many cultures, from Mesoamerica to Tibet, described crystals as vessels for spirit or memory. Quartz resonates with subtle electrical charge. Our own nervous systems run on the same principle. Perhaps those who slept near such objects believed they could amplify or record thought, tuning the dreamer's mind to finer frequencies. Whether science confirms it or not, the belief itself suggests a profound intimacy between consciousness and matter. Then there are the sleep masks unearthed in Egyptian tombs and Mediterranean sanctuaries, made of linen, clay, or hammered bronze. Some depict the closed eyes of deities, others the calm expression of a soul at rest. They were laid upon the faces of the living during rituals of incubation, shielding vision so that inner sight could open. To sleep behind the mask was to enter the god's dream, to borrow divine perception for a night. The idea feels theatrical now, yet modern dream researchers know that sensory isolation deepens hypnagogic imagery. The ancients, without laboratories, had already mastered the conditions of lucid sleep. Across the ancient Near East and into Greece, temples were built with chambers of peculiar design, domes, alcoves, and stone hollows that concentrate sound. Acoustic engineers today find that many of these resonance chambers magnify low frequencies, creating waves that vibrate through the human body. Within such spaces, dreamers once lay on cold stone beds awaiting visions. The vibrations may have lulled them into trance, aligning heartbeat and breath with the architecture around them. Perhaps these sanctuaries were the first instruments of altered consciousness. Spaces built not to house gods, but to shape the minds of those who sought them. Even more curious are the ancient bowls and conches carved to produce a steady hum when struck or blown. In Himalayan and Mesopotamian traditions, these tones were said to open pathways between worlds. Sound travels easily through water and flesh, and our brains, being mostly both, respond to rhythm instinctively. The heartbeat slows, brainwaves synchronize, and the boundary between waking and dreaming thins. What the ancients called divine music might simply have been the human body responding to resonance. Yet that simply is its own kind of wonder. Archaeological caution reminds us not to leap to conclusions. Many of these objects may have served multiple functions, some ceremonial, some practical. But patterns repeat too neatly to ignore. From the crystal altars of the Maya to the echoing caves of Malta, humanity seemed intent on creating tools and spaces that bridged consciousness. Whether they sought healing, prophecy, or communion, the method was the same. Reshape matter to influence mind. Their craft was a dialogue between stone and dream. Consider the hypogeum of Halsaflieni in Malta, a labyrinth carved into rock over 5,000 years ago. Deep within it lies the oracle room, a chamber that resonates precisely at the 11 hertz, a frequency linked in modern studies to relaxation and altered states of awareness. To stand there and speak is to feel one's voice vibrate through bone and air alike. It is easy to imagine priests or dreamers using that vibration to enter trance, to coax visions from the darkness. The chamber itself becomes a collaborator in consciousness, a machine made of silence and echo. Even in Asia, similar intentions appear. In India's ancient rock-cut temples, architects engineered corridors where chanting produced sustained harmonics. The same principle guided Tibetan singing bowls and the enormous gongs of Southeast Asia. Across continents, humans sculpted sound, light, and geometry into instruments for dreaming. Such efforts hint at a lost knowledge. Not technological in our sense, but psychological and cosmic. They seem to know that consciousness could be tuned like a string, that rest could be shaped by design. Perhaps these artifacts are not remnants of superstition, but relics of experiments in awareness. Early attempts to record or amplify the dream experience. If so, they are the earliest evidence that humanity recognized sleep as more than necessity. It was exploration. And maybe, just maybe, these tools worked not through magic, but through resonance, aligning the body's internal frequencies with those of the earth, the stars, or the crystal lattice itself. As we gaze upon them in museums today, polished beneath sterile lights, it is difficult to feel the pulse they once held. Yet, their shapes still carry memory. The curve of a bowl, the angle of a chamber, the cool surface of quartz. All invite touch, as if waiting for dreamers to return. They are unfinished sentences carved in stone, hinting at conversations interrupted by time. And if we listen quietly enough, perhaps we can still hear the question they were built to ask. Can consciousness be shaped, guided, harmonize with the universe that made it? The answer may lie in the dreams that once filled those spaces. Dreams of stars, serpents, and voices in the dark. From these mysterious tools, the story gathers momentum toward its great inquiry. If so many civilizations built monuments to the dream, what exactly were they all seeking within it? The next chapter turns toward that enigma. The possibility that ancient humans did not dream alone, but together, sharing visions that bound them across time and space. Fragments of one cosmic dream still unfolding through us all. Every night, as cities fade to murmurs and the world exhales, billions of minds drift into darkness. Each person believes their dream is private, an isolated theater of memory and desire. Yet what if that solitude is an illusion? What if, beneath the surface of sleep, consciousness merges into something collective? An invisible ocean where thoughts flow between souls like currents beneath the tide. Across history, there are whispers of this possibility. Moments when many dreamed as one. When visions spread like wildfire through the human mind. Ancient chronicles speak of tribes who dream together. In Aboriginal Australia, elders described communal dreaming where members of the same clan saw identical scenes. A storm approaching, an ancestor's message, a warning of sickness or migration. In the Americas, the Iroquois and the Seneca held dream councils, believing dreams were not private possessions, but community property. Messages meant to be shared for the well-being of all. When one dreamed of water rising, another would confirm it. When one heard a name in sleep, the tribe acted as though a spirit had spoken through many mouths. In ancient Greece, entire temples were built around collective visions. Pilgrims came to the sanctuaries of Asclepius, sleeping side by side on stone floors. At dawn, they would recount what they had seen to Sediab, often astonishingly, the same images repeated across dozens of dreamers. Serpents, light, divine healers entering through walls of mist. Modern readers may doubt, but even recent history records similar wonders. In 1917, 3 children in Fatima, Portugal, reported a vision of radiant light. Weeks later, thousands gathered and claimed to witness the miracle of the sun. Whether celestial event or mass hypnosis, something profound happened. A shared perception that blurred the line between waking and dreaming. In more recent times, researchers have noted spontaneous patterns of shared dreams during crises. After earthquakes, wars, and disasters, survivors often report eerily similar imagery. Waves, collapsing towers, shadowy figures, fire raining from the sky. Psychologists call this collective symbolism, a natural response to stress. But perhaps the explanation is larger. A psychic synchronization triggered when humanity vibrates with the same emotion. When millions grieve, perhaps the boundaries between minds thin. During the early 20th century, Carl Jung experienced dreams of floods and frozen lands, visions he later found mirrored in countless others across Europe. just before the outbreak of World War I. He called it the collective unconscious, a deep field connecting all human minds. Modern science, cautious but curious, has found hints of something similar. Studies at Princeton's Global Consciousness Project observed subtle changes in random data generators during major world events. Spikes of order emerging from chaos, as if the collective attention of millions created a measurable resonance. It may sound fantastical, yet nature provides analogies everywhere. Schools of fish turn in unison without signal. Birds migrate together across continents, sensing magnetic pathways through instinct no scientist can fully explain. Trees share nutrients and warning signals through underground fungal webs. Life, it seems, between is predisposed to connection. Why should consciousness, the most intricate phenomenon of all, be the exception? Imagine consciousness as a field, not a flame. Each mind is not a separate spark, but a ripple in a single vast surface. When one ripple rises, others respond, forming patterns of harmony or turbulence. Dreams, then, may be the moments when the ripples overlap most freely, when the illusion of isolation dissolves and the field remembers itself. This could explain why some dreams feel oddly familiar, as if borrowed. Many people describe entering places they've never seen, but somehow, how recognize? Meeting strangers who feel known. Perhaps these are not creations of the individual mind, but intersections. Moments where one person's dream crosses another's. A shared script played out in many theaters at once. Throughout cultures, there are stories of prophets who dreamed for the world. They would sleep, and visions would come not for themselves, but for their people. The Old Testament speaks of Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dreams to avert famine. In Polynesian traditions, dreamers were believed to navigate for entire voyages by receiving visions of unseen islands. Even today, artists, inventors, and scientists often describe breakthroughs emerging from dreams. The same melody, the same equation, appearing in multiple minds at once. Coincidence, perhaps, or a sign that ideas circulate through a shared atmosphere of thought, waiting for receptive dreamers to receive them. If consciousness is networked, dreams may be the most natural form of communication within it. Unlike waking life, which relies on speech and distance, dreams occur in symbolic space. Images understood without translation. They bypass the noise of culture and language, reaching instead for what is universal. Fear, wonder, hope, transformation. In this way, dreams might be humanity's oldest language. The one we continue to speak together every night, even if we no longer remember the words upon waking. Consider the possibility that the dream world is not created by us, but through us. Each sleeper contributes imagery and emotion to a shared environment, shaped by billions of overlapping minds. Some traditions call this the astral plane, others the dreaming, others simply the collective field. Whatever the name, the experience remains the same. The sense that we have entered a space already alive, where meaning exists before thought. If this is true, then dreams are not solitary performances, but shared symphonies. Each mind contributes a note. Laughter, grief, memory, to the greater harmony. And when we awaken, we carry traces of that vast collaboration, translated into private visions. This could explain the haunting familiarity of certain symbols across time and culture. Humanity, in its sleep, has been co-authoring a single cosmic story since the beginning. For those who lie awake at night, feeling the pull of invisible threads, this idea offers comfort. The loneliness of the modern dreamer softens when we imagine that behind every closed eyelid, billions of others drift into the same sea. We are not alone in the dark. We are the dark, collectively dreaming itself into light. As this thought settles, a new awareness arises. If consciousness can connect across distance, perhaps the network extends beyond humanity. The next step is to look outward, to the planet that holds us, the living world, whose rhythms guide our own. For if our dreams converge, could it be because we all belong to the same greater mind? The dreaming consciousness of Earth itself. The Earth is not silent. It breathes in tides, hums with magnetism, and pulses with rhythms that shape every heartbeat. To the ancients, these patterns were the speech of gods. To modern science, they are measurable frequencies. The living vibrations of a planet in motion. But what if both are true? What if the Earth itself is not a stage for life, but a participant? A vast organism dreaming through its inhabitants? The Gaia hypothesis, first proposed in the 1970s, described Earth as a self-regulating system. Oceans, atmosphere, soil, and life interacting to sustain balance. But beyond chemistry lies poetry. If Gaia is alive, then perhaps consciousness, the awareness that flickers in humans and animals, is one of her ways of perceiving herself. Every dream, every thought, every emotion could be a neuron firing in the planetary brain. Ancient traditions seem to understand this long before science gave it a name. The Greeks called her Gaia. Gaia, mother of all. Indigenous cultures across the world spoke of Earth as a sentient being. Pachamama in the Andes, Danu in Celtic lands, the dreaming Earth among Aboriginal peoples. They believed that every stone and stream carried awareness, that sleep connected humans to the mind of the planet. Shamans lay upon the ground to dream, pressing their ears to the soil as if listening to a heartbeat. They said the Earth spoke in symbols, teaching through storms, seasons, and visions. Modern measurements echo their intuition. The planet vibrates at a constant low frequency, around 8 Hz. The same frequency as human alpha waves, the rhythm of relaxed wakefulness and meditation. When we lie still, breathing slowly, our brains sync naturally to that pulse. It is as though we are tuning into the Earth's baseline, aligning thought with geology. Perhaps this resonance is not coincidence but communication. The planet's quiet way of harmonizing her countless living parts. In that sense, dreams might be how the Earth remembers herself. Each night, billions of sleepers form a living web across continents, their neural activity shimmering like bioluminescent plankton in a dark sea. Patterns emerge, the same symbols, the same emotions, like the flickers of a vast network lighting up. If consciousness is energy, then perhaps our dreams are the planet's electricity, coursing through her biological circuits. We are not observers of Earth's dream, we are the dream's participants. This idea may sound mystical, yet it has practical echoes. And studies have shown that human collective emotion can affect the environment. Subtle correlations between global mood and atmospheric patterns, shifts in geomagnetic fields, during mass meditation or tragedy. The evidence is fragile, but the suggestion is powerful, that our minds, collectively, might interact with the planet's energetic field. The ancients might have said it more simply. When humanity grieves, the earth trembles. When we heal, she breathes easier. Such interdependence offers a new way to understand myth and ritual. The dances around fires, the songs sung to rivers, the offerings buried in soil. These were not superstition but communication. Through rhythm, chant, and dream, humans synchronized their inner worlds with the earth's rhythms. The ceremonies created coherence between mind and matter, allowing the planet to speak through vision and intuition. In some indigenous stories, humanity is described as the earth's eyes closed in sleep, dreaming the landscape into form. Mountains are the frozen gestures of ancient dreams. Rivers, the memory of motion. Even death, in this view, is not an ending but a reabsorption. The dreamer returning to the dreamer. When a person dies, their consciousness dissolves on back into the planetary field, awaiting rebirth in another shape. The cycle continues endlessly, each dream feeding the next. Modern culture, detached from this awareness, treats the planet as background, not being. Yet the symptoms of imbalance, ecological collapse, mental unrest, may be signals from the same intelligence, warnings from the dreaming earth herself. The anxiety that sweeps societies, the sleeplessness of cities, could be the planet's unease manifesting through her neurons. Us. Perhaps the earth dreams of harmony, but the dream has turned restless. Still, there are moments when connection returns. During global meditations, solar eclipses, or mass awakenings of empathy, people report feeling a sudden stillness, as though the world itself takes a breath. For a heartbeat, humanity and planet seem to remember their unity. It is in those moments that we glimpse Gaia awake, the vast organism remembering its own name. To live with this awareness is to reclaim humility. We are not outside of nature. We are its voice, its nervous system, its dream in motion. The mountains and the oceans are not scenery. They are the organs through which the larger consciousness of Earth feels and creates. When we dream, we may simply be translating her language into symbols we can understand. Serpents for rivers, stars for neurons, light for thought. If the planet truly dreams, then our role is sacred. Each emotion we carry, each dream we dream, feeds back into the great feedback loop of existence. The planet thinks through us as we think upon her. The rain that falls after despair, the dawn that follows prayer. These are her responses, subtle and endless. And so, the idea of the shared dream expands once more. Humanity's connection does not stop at the borders of the flesh. It extends into soil, sea, and sky. The earth is the dreamer, and we are the dreams remembering themselves. As this realization deepens, the gaze lifts from the horizon to the heavens. If the planet can dream, could the stars themselves also dream? Might the cosmos be conscious, weaving realities the way the earth weaves life? The next chapter ascends to that scale, to the mystery of the universe that dreams itself. One thought, one world, one sleeper at a time. Imagine, for a moment, that the universe is asleep, not dead, not empty, but dreaming. Endlessly, vividly, through the light of its stars and the movement of its galaxies. in that dream, everything we know unfolds. Atoms colliding, planets forming, lives being lived and forgotten. The cosmos breathes, not with lungs, but with gravity and time, inhaling creation, exhaling destruction. And within that infinite slumber we exist, not separate from it, but as fragments of its vast and restless imagination. The ancient philosophers of India spoke of this long before telescopes and quantum theories. They called it Maya, the divine dream that shapes reality. The Upanishads whispered that the world is the vision of Brahman, consciousness itself, playing out its infinite possibilities. Greek mystics hinted at the same mystery when they described the universe as anima mundi, the world soul. Even in modern physics, where observation defines existence, we find a strange echo of those old truths. Nothing becomes real until it is perceived. The act of awareness seems to sculpt the very fabric of space and time. What if we are not observers, but expressions of that awareness? The universe perceiving itself through a billion sets of eyes. When a human looks at the stars, perhaps the stars are looking back, recognizing themselves in miniature. The neurons firing in our brains are made from the remnants of ancient suns. Every thought, every dream, and every spark of curiosity is starlight remembering its origin. We are not beneath the cosmos, but within it. Cells in its dreaming mind. Consider how everything in existence vibrates. From the smallest subatomic particles to the swirling galaxies, there is rhythm everywhere. Waves, cycles, frequencies. Physics calls it oscillation. Mystics call it consciousness. The patterns repeat across scale, suggesting that the same intelligence governs both the atom and the nebula. It is as though the universe thinks not in words, but in harmonies. Matter, energy, and life are notes in an eternal composition, a symphony played by silence itself. If the cosmos dreams, then the laws of nature are the grammar of that dream. Gravity, electromagnetism, entropy. These are not arbitrary forces, but the rhythms that keep the illusion coherent. They bind galaxies and hold atoms together, maintaining the shape of thought. The Big Bang could be seen as the first breath of that dreaming mind, the instant it realized itself and began to imagine. From that singular moment, everything that exists unfolded like the branching of a vast neural network. Perhaps every supernova, every birth, every death is a flicker in that cosmic consciousness. Neurons firing in the brain of infinity. Scientists now speculate that the universe may be holographic, a projection of information woven into the fabric of space-time. To mystics, this idea sounds familiar. Dreams, too, are holograms. Vivid realities built from nothing but awareness. When we dream, we create worlds that feel tangible, only to dissolve upon waking. How different, truly, is that from galaxies forming and fading across eons? Maybe the universe, too, is dreaming worlds into being, unaware that it is the dreamer. From this perspective, death loses its sting, and existence its solidity. We are patterns, endlessly changing, yet never destroyed. When we die, we do not vanish, we shift, like thoughts fading in one part of the mind and arising in another. The energy that once formed our consciousness disperses into new forms, continuing the dream. Even the stars follow this rhythm, collapse and rebirth, creation and return. The cycle is not cruel, it is creative, the cosmos forever reimagining itself. This thought need not frighten us. It invites a gentler kind of wonder, the realization that meaning does not depend on permanence. To be alive, even for a brief flicker in the cosmic span, is to participate in the universe's imagination. Every act of kindness, every moment of awe, every dream we dream adds texture to that vast and ongoing vision. We are the way the cosmos paints. Some physicists propose that consciousness might be fundamental, not an accidental byproduct of matter, but its foundation. If so, then the universe did not give rise to awareness. Awareness gave rise to the universe. Space and time themselves could be expressions of perception unfolding, like waves forming upon an ocean that has no shore. This concept bends the edges of understanding, but it feels strangely right, like something we have always known. When mystics close their eyes and describe merging with the infinite, they may be remembering this truth, the feeling of oneness, of dissolving into light, is the universe's most intimate moment of self-recognition. In such moments, the dreamer stirs slightly, aware that it is dreaming. Yet full awakening may never come. For to wake would mean to end the dream. Instead, the cosmos continues its luminous slumber, endlessly exploring itself through form and thought. So perhaps everything, every mountain, every breath, every heartbeat, is part of that gentle dreaming. The stars are not distant fires, but neurons of the cosmic mind. Their light the pulse of universal awareness. The space between them is not empty. It is filled with the quiet hum of thought. And we, here on our small planet, are not observers at the edge of creation. We are its reflection, its echo, its memory made conscious. If this is true, then the purpose of life may not be survival or accumulation, but remembrance. The act of realizing that we are part of something immeasurably vast and alive. To look at the night sky and feel awe is not superstition. It is recognition. The universe sees itself through our wonder. And so, the question becomes not whether the cosmos dreams, but how we might remember that we are inside its dream. The next chapter will explore the moments when humanity, in flashes of insight and beauty, seems to awaken together. The lucid moments of history, when the dreamer briefly knows itself and smiles through us. Across the long sweep of history, there have been moments when something in humanity stirs. When, without warning, the collective mind seems to open its eyes. Art blooms suddenly. Knowledge accelerates, compassion deepens, and the sense of separateness begins to dissolve. These are not just revolutions of culture, they are awakenings. Brief, lucid intervals within the universe's great dream. The Renaissance was one such moment. After centuries of shadow and superstition, light returned. Not only through art and science, but through the human spirit itself. Painters filled their canvases with divine proportion. Philosophers rediscovered the cosmos as a living harmony. For a few shining centuries, humanity remembered its connection to the infinite. To stand before the works of Leonardo or Michelangelo, even now, is to feel that remembrance. The recognition that beauty is not human invention, but cosmic expression. It is as though the universe momentarily became aware of its own elegance through our hands. Another awakening came with the Enlightenment. Reason expanded, the mysteries of the stars yielded to mathematics, and humanity began to understand the physical laws of the dream. Yet even in its rationality, the Enlightenment carried a spiritual undertone. the faith that truth could be known, that order and meaning were woven into the structure of existence. Science became the universe studying itself. Curiosity, the dream's way of illuminating its own mechanics. Then came the spiritual revolutions. The teachings of the Buddha, the compassion of Christ, the meditations of Lao Tzu, the poetry of Rumi. Each of these moments was not a new doctrine, but a reawakening of memory. A reminder that beneath the illusion of separateness lies a single consciousness, breathing through all beings. When humanity listens to such teachers, it is not learning something new. It is remembering what the dreamer has always known. Even modern history carries echoes of these lucid moments. The sudden leaps of technology, the rise of global communication, the spread of ideas at the speed of thought. All of these suggest acceleration, as though the universe is thinking faster through us. When people across continents connect instantly, we recreate the neural networks of the cosmic brain, reflecting the unity from which we came. The internet, for all its chaos, may be a metaphor made real. Billions of individual nodes sharing one vast mind. But lucidity in dreams is fragile. The sleeper often wakes too far and loses the vision, or falls back into confusion. So it is with humanity. Our periods of illumination are followed by shadows, wars, greed, and fear. As if the dreamer recoils from too much self-awareness. The cycles repeat: creation, forgetfulness, and renewal. Yet with each awakening, something endures. Knowledge, empathy, art. Traces left in the dream's memory. The universe learns through us, adjusting its own rhythm. These awakenings often begin quietly, within individuals who suddenly perceive unity where others see separation. Mystics describe it as being filled with light. Scientists might call it coherence. Brain waves synchronized, perception expanded. Whatever the language, the result is the same. A sense of oneness so complete that it transforms not just the person, but those around them. Such moments ripple outward, inspiring movements, renaissances, and revolutions. The dreamer's awareness spreads through its own creation. Perhaps each era of progress, each leap in consciousness, represents the universe taking a deeper breath, briefly lucid within its slumber. During these times, we glimpse what existence could become if the dreamer never forgot. Music, art, and philosophy align, compassion flourishes, invention reaches toward the stars. Humanity acts as the cosmos remembering its potential. Then, as with all dreams, the clarity fades. The sleeper rolls over, the vision dims, but something remains imprinted in the structure of reality. A memory waiting to awaken again. Even now, we may be living through such a moment. For all our turmoil, there is a quiet undercurrent of awakening, a longing for unity, a collective recognition of interconnectedness, the spread of mindfulness, the merging of science and spirituality, the global empathy born of shared crises. These are signs of lucidity returning. The dreamer stirs once more, murmuring through billions of minds, "Remember me." If humanity is capable of collective awakening, then our role in the cosmic dream may be far more than passive. We are not merely characters acting out a script. We are authors, dreamers within the dream. Our awareness feeds back into the whole, altering the direction of creation itself. Every discovery, every act of compassion, every insight into truth strengthens the universe's capacity to know itself. And what happens when the universe becomes fully aware of its own dreaming? No one can say. Perhaps it will transcend into something new. A state beyond time, beyond form, beyond dreaming itself. Or perhaps the dream will continue forever, perfecting its beauty through endless cycles of awakening. For now, we remain the lucid dreamers, fleeting but luminous, remembering, forgetting and remembering again. And as the next chapter unfolds, the focus turns inward once more. For before humanity can awaken together, each of us must first awaken within ourselves, recognizing that our individual dream is a thread in the tapestry of creation. The story narrows from the cosmic to the personal, from the universe's vast sleep to the quiet heartbeat of one dreamer at a time. Perhaps evolution's next great leap will not arrive in bone or muscle, but in awareness. Long ago, humanity learned to walk upright, then to think abstractly, then to speak its dreams aloud. Now, at the edge of another turning, we stand before a quieter frontier, the awakening of the dreaming mind itself. The tools of this evolution are not stone or steel, but consciousness, curiosity, and the rediscovery of our oldest language, the dream. Modern neuroscience, with all its precision, has begun to circle back toward mysteries that once belonged only to mystics. In laboratories bathed in dim red light, scientists observe the sleeping brain with electrodes and scanners, mapping its storms of color and rhythm. What they find is astonishing. During REM sleep, the mind behaves as though it is both asleep and awake, weaving imagination with memory, emotion with invention. Lucid dreamers, those who realize they are dreaming, display patterns of neural activation almost indistinguishable from meditation. It is as though the brain is practicing awareness inside its own illusions, a rehearsal for some higher state of consciousness yet to come. Research into consciousness now hints that reality itself may be a construct of perception, that what we see, touch, and remember is a projection shaped by the mind. This idea, once confined to philosophy, now finds resonance in physics and cognitive science alike. If perception creates reality, then dreaming might be the purest form of creation, a glimpse of how consciousness shapes worlds from within. Evolution may be guiding us toward the ability to do this with intention, to recognize life itself as a lucid dream shared by all beings. Already, studies show that mindfulness and lucid dreaming training can expand empathy, creativity, and problem-solving. People who learn to awaken inside their dreams often report deeper calm, clearer intuition, and a sense of connection beyond individuality. The boundaries between waking and dreaming begin to soften, revealing a continuous field of awareness. Perhaps this is what evolution seeks. Not endless adaptation to the outer world, but mastery of the inner one. Throughout history, visionaries have hinted at this shift. The Buddha spoke of awakening from the illusion of separateness. Jesus taught of inner kingdoms. Rumi urged us to become the dream. Their words may not have been metaphor at all, but prophecy. The early signals of a transformation now reaching critical mass. Humanity is learning to become conscious within its own creation. Technology, too, paradoxically aids this return to awareness. Brainwave devices allow dreamers to signal from within sleep, bridging the gap between worlds. Virtual reality mirrors dream logic, teaching us how perception bends. Artificial intelligence, modeled loosely on the neural patterns of thought, becomes a mirror for our own dreaming processes. These inventions, if used wisely, can serve as catalysts, tools that remind us how malleable reality truly is. Yet, they also carry a warning. Awareness must deepen as power grows, or we risk recreating our own illusions on larger scales. Neuroscientists studying REM sleep have discovered that it is essential not only for creativity and memory, but for emotional integration. Dreams weave the day's fragments into meaning, dissolving pain, reinforcing joy. Without them, the psyche frays. The collective sleeplessness of modern life may thus be more than exhaustion. It is the stalling of evolution's next movement. To reclaim our natural rest may be to reclaim the very mechanism through which humanity grows inwardly. Imagine a future where dreaming is treated not as escape, but as collaboration, where societies encourage nightly reflection as they now value productivity. Schools might teach dream literacy, how to interpret, how to heal, how to co-create. Hospitals could use shared dreaming therapies to treat trauma. Artists might enter lucid states to design worlds that later become physical architecture. Science fiction, perhaps, is simply prophecy misunderstood. At the cutting edge of consciousness research, some theorists suggest that awareness could evolve toward non-locality. That as our brains synchronize through technology and empathy, we may begin to experience shared dreaming again, echoing our ancient ancestors. Brain-to-brain communication experiments already hint at this possibility. Faint, primitive transmissions of thought across distance. If refined, they could become the foundation for a new kind of unity. Humanity connected not by wire, but by mind. Yet, even without machines, something subtle is already happening. People around the world report an increase in vivid symbolic dreams of light, transformation, reunion. Psychologists dismiss patterns, but mystics see rhythm, the same archetypes rising again, as though humanity's deeper layers are preparing for collective lucidity. Perhaps the universe, through us, is nearing another awakening. Evolution has never stopped. It only changes its canvas. Where once it shaped bone, now it shapes thought. The next age may belong to those who can dream consciously, who recognize that reality, like sleep, responds to intention. To live lucidly is to participate knowingly in creation. If this awakening truly comes, it will not arrive as a sudden miracle, but as a gentle remembering. One night, millions may dream the same dream, of light returning, of peace descending like dawn, and wake feeling something has shifted. Perhaps it will not even need to be named. The world will simply begin to behave differently, more cooperative, more curious, more kind. That would be the dreamer stirring within us, finally aware of its own reflection. And as this hope glows softly against the backdrop of the stars, the story turns once more. From possibility to purpose. If evolution is guiding us toward awakening, what will we do with it? How can we live as conscious dreamers, weaving healing and meaning into our waking days? The final section becomes that answer. A quiet reminder that every dream dreamt tonight becomes part of humanity's unfolding future. When we close our eyes each night, we enter a world made entirely of our own awareness. A universe without distance, built from emotion and memory, reflection, and light. For most of history, humanity treated this as nothing more than rest or escape. But what if sleep is not retreat but return? What if every dream is a thread that connects us back to the great design? The map of who we are and what we might become. Dreams have always carried power. They heal the fractures that waking life cannot reach. They speak in symbols because words are too small for truth. A child lost to grief may dream of a parent smiling from a field of light, and something in the heart mends. A scientist may dream of an impossible formula, and upon waking, find it works. An artist may dream a color that does not exist, then spend a lifetime trying to paint it. The dream gives, and the waking world responds. Modern research now confirms what the ancients knew intuitively. Dreams are essential to emotional balance, creativity, and resilience. They process trauma, integrate experience, and spark innovation. But beyond the science lies something subtler. The sense that dreams are messages from the deeper layers of being. From the part of us that remembers we belong to the cosmos itself. Each night, we return to that source and bring back fragments, images, feelings, insights. The seeds of awakening scattered through our lives. To rediscover the art of dreaming is to rediscover wonder. We can begin simply by honoring sleep as sacred, by dimming the lights, slowing the breath, setting an intention not to escape the world, but to meet it more deeply. Ancient dreamers did this through prayer or song. We can do it through silence. Keeping a journal beside the bed turns morning into revelation. The transition from night to day becomes a continuation of conversation. Dream work is not superstition, it is dialogue. Every image the mind produces is a metaphor waiting to be heard. When a flood fills our dream, it may be emotion asking for release. When we fly, it may be freedom remembering itself. Interpreting dreams does not mean decoding messages from elsewhere. It means translating ourselves, remembering the language of imagination. Through that remembrance, the world regains dimension. Reality becomes porous again, full of shimmering meaning. In rediscovering dreams, we rediscover empathy. To know that every person you meet carries a hidden world behind their eyes, just as vivid, just as strange as your own, is to understand the sacredness of existence. The realization softens judgment and deepens connection. If all of humanity dreams, then all of humanity participates in the same creative process. We are co-authors of reality, whether we acknowledge it or not. This perspective changes everything. Art becomes prayer. Science becomes revelation. Sleep becomes communion. When we rest consciously, we contribute to the balance of the larger mind that holds us all. The dream world is not separate from waking life. It is its foundation. What happens there shapes what happens here. The forgotten language of symbols still writes tomorrow's history. For those seeking healing, dreams offer paths medicine cannot map. By revisiting dreams in meditation, we can find lost fragments of ourselves, the moments we silenced, the truths we denied. Within dreams, forgiveness becomes possible. The loved one long gone can be met once more. The wound that never healed can speak and finally release. Such experiences blur the line between psychology and spirituality, reminding us that the inner world is vast enough for both. Collectively, dream work could become humanity's quiet revolution. A return to imagination as wisdom. Imagine a society that begins each day not with headlines, but with shared reflection. What did we dream? Patterns might emerge. New mythologies form, guiding us through crises as ancient dreams once did. Our future might depend not on innovation alone, but on remembering how to listen inwardly together. When you dream tonight, you may be adding one more page to humanity's eternal story. Another verse in the song of consciousness unfolding. Perhaps your dream will echo someone else's on the other side of the planet, completing a pattern unseen. Or perhaps it will plant a seed, an idea, a feeling, a choice that ripples outward through generations. Every dream matters, because every dream is connected. And when you wake, carry that awareness gently into daylight. See the world not as something outside you, but as the continuation of the dream you began at night. The trees, the sky, the people, all moving images in the shared imagination of existence. Treat them with the reverence you would show a vision. As this understanding deepens, the boundaries between sleeping and waking begin to fade. Life itself becomes lucid. Not control, but participation. To live in this way is to align with the rhythm that shaped the stars and stirs the tides. It is to remember that consciousness, in all its forms, is the universe learning to love itself. And so, as the night returns, we do not fall asleep to forget. We fall asleep to remember, to rejoin the vast network of dreamers weaving the next age of humanity, the age of awareness, of harmony, of light. The cosmos still dreams through us, and every breath we take is its reminder that the dream continues. The story now turns toward its closing, the final descent into the silence from which it all began. The dreamer, the planet, the cosmos, all return to the stillness of night, carrying the quiet understanding that nothing was ever separate. Only the dream, dreaming itself endlessly. It begins where it always does, in the quiet. The hum of insects, the sigh of wind through unseen branches, the soft crackle of fire in the dark. Somewhere a flame flickers, and shadows tremble against the walls of an ancient cave. A small group of humans sits close to its warmth, faces half lit, eyes reflecting the stars beyond the mouth of the world. They have no words for what they feel, only wonder. Above them, the night sky stretches endlessly, a mirror for their unspoken questions. And as eyelids grow heavy and breathing slows, the first dream begins again. It is the same dream that carried us through ages, through myth and empire, through darkness and discovery. The fire became a lamp. The lamp became a screen. Yet the impulse remains unchanged. To seek meaning in the silence between heartbeats, to follow the flicker of light into the unknown. The ancient dreamer who closed their eyes beside that first fire could not have imagined us. Yet their thoughts move in our own. The shapes we see behind our eyelids, stars, spirals, faces of light, are the same they saw. The dream remembers. All through history, the night has been our teacher. It taught us humility when we looked at the stars, courage when we faced our shadows, creativity when we painted the unseen. Each generation has added to the story. From the shamans who dreamed for their tribes to the scientists who now map the sleeping brain. The journey from myth to molecule is not a departure, but a continuation. The dream discovering itself through new symbols. What we call progress is simply the fire changing form. Now, in the still hours before dawn, we find ourselves back where we began, surrounded by light of our own making, yet longing for darkness again. The ancient rhythm of night and day still pulses within us, though we have forgotten its language. The world hums with information, but meaning whispers only in the quiet. When we close our eyes, we rejoin that original conversation, the one between the stars and the soul. Sleep, then, is not an escape from the world, but a return to it. Perhaps we have never truly awakened. Perhaps we are still dreaming the first dream, the one that began when consciousness first looked at the cosmos and wondered what it was. Each civilization, each era, each life may simply be another scene in that endless vision. What we call history could be the slow unfolding of the same dreamer remembering itself through time. And if so, then our nightly descent into sleep is not an ending, but a reunion. Every time we drift beyond the edge of waking, we step once more into the circle of humanity's memory, the shared imagination that binds all who have ever lived. There, we meet again the painters of caves, the priests of temples, the philosophers of stars. We walk the same inner landscapes, lit by the same eternal fire. The modern mind, surrounded by noise, may find this hard to believe. Yet even now, when we dream of flight, of love, of death, we are repeating the symbols carved in stone by our ancestors. The serpent, the flood, the ladder of light. They move within us as naturally as breath. We may have changed our stories, but not our essence. The dreamer inside humanity remains unchanged, ancient as the night itself. It is comforting to imagine that when we sleep, the boundary between then and now dissolves. The fires of prehistory burn beside the neon of cities. The chants of monks mingle with the hum of electricity. In that convergence, the dream becomes a bridge between what was and what will be. Perhaps that is why we sometimes wake with tears or joy we cannot explain. Echoes from other times, other lives, resonating through the same infinite consciousness. As we look back upon this long journey, from the caves to the cosmos, from myth to neuron, one truth rises gently to the surface. We have never been separate from the mystery we sought to understand. The fire that burns in the sky is the same that burns in the mind. The night outside and the night within are one. The dream was never elsewhere. It has always been here, breathing quietly through us. And so, as the fire in the cave flickers low and the stars begin to fade into the pale shimmer of dawn, we understand what the ancients already knew. The story of the night is the story of ourselves. To dream is to remember is to live, and to live is to keep the fire burning. The circle closes, but it does not end. The narrator's voice softens, a whisper carried on wind and time. The night that began in the hearts of our ancestors continues within us, guiding us still. As long as we dream, the story will never be lost. Every flicker of imagination, every glimpse of wonder, feeds the eternal flame. And though morning comes, the darkness remains. Not as absence, but as promise. The dream waits there, ancient and patient, for us to close our eyes once more. And as the last ember glows, we return to where we began. The silence before the first word, the darkness before the first light. The dream continues, eternal, unbroken, breathing through every sleeper. waiting to be remembered again. The stars have not changed, only our understanding of them. They still scatter across the sky like thoughts in a sleeping mind, flickering with memory. Somewhere between those points of light and the pulse within our chests lies the truth we have been circling since the beginning. The dream is not over. It never was. The universe remains in motion, weaving reality like a vast tapestry of thought. Science calls it expansion. Poets call it breath. Every second, new stars ignite. Not as symbols, but as sentences written in the language of energy. And yet, beneath the equations and the metaphors, the feeling remains the same as it was around that first fire. Awe. We look outward, and something within us answers. It is recognition. The cosmos remembering itself through our eyes, and modern science and ancient mysticism have come to rest at the same horizon. One measures waves and particles, the other listens for meaning in silence. Both seek to understand why anything exists at all, and both find themselves humbled by the vastness of the unknown. Somewhere between mathematics and myth lies the same revelation. That reality is participation, that consciousness and creation are entwined. We are the universe studying its own reflection, the dream learning its own name. When we sleep, we enter that reflection. We dissolve into the same darkness that birthed galaxies. Our thoughts scatter into constellations. Our fears collapse into black holes. Our joys shine briefly like stars. The dream world is not a separate place, but another scale of existence, the microcosm of the cosmic imagination. In dreaming, we practice what the universe has always done: create, destroy, and begin again. If this is true, then life itself is the ultimate lucid dream, awareness exploring its own infinite potential. Evolution, art, science, love, all the ways the dream learns to see itself more clearly. And death, perhaps it is only waking into a wider version of the same dream, one where memory and time no longer divide the story. There is comfort in this perspective. It means nothing is truly lost. Every life, every thought, every dream contributes to the collective memory of existence. The cosmos wastes nothing. It only transforms. The laughter of a child, the song of a bird, the glimmer of a distant star, all are notes in the same eternal composition. The dream never repeats exactly, yet its melody endures. Humanity stands now at a strange threshold. Scientific yet spiritual, restless yet aware. We build machines to simulate thought. We explore the edge of time itself, and yet we still dream of meaning. The more we discover, the deeper the mystery grows. Perhaps this is by design. The dream must remain mysterious to remain alive. Certainty would be the end of wonder, and wonder is the pulse of creation. So the documentary closes not with an answer, but a breath. A long, slow exhalation into infinity. The narrator speaks softly, the tone both intimate and vast. You are part of the story. You have always been. Every night you return to the place from which all stories arise. The boundless field of imagination that sustains the stars. When you close your eyes, the cosmos continues its work through you. And in that realization lies peace. We are not separate minds adrift in a meaningless void. We are the universe's own curiosity, dreaming itself through countless forms, learning compassion through experience. To live is to contribute to the remembering of the whole. Listen now to the sound that began it all. The hum beneath silence, the rhythm of galaxies, the slow heartbeat of time. It is the same sound that fills the ears of the sleeper just before they drift away. It is the sound of the dream breathing. The image fades to black. Somewhere, the firelight flickers one last time, then becomes a star. The music of night swells, gentle, endless. And the narrator's voice lingers in the space between thought and sleep. The dream is not over. It never was. Every breath, every life, every star is part of its telling. Rest now. The cosmos is still dreaming. And you are the dream. Silence follows. The hum deepens. The screen remains dark. Not empty, but full. The story has folded back upon itself, returning to where it began. The fire, the stars, the mind, the night. All one continuum. And somewhere, as another dreamer closes their eyes, the first dream begins again.